Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Stories from the Christian Heart. You're listening to episode 10 in our series, but if this is your first time to experience the Christian Heart, please be sure to go back and catch the first 9 episodes. And remember, these are all true stories meant to encourage you by showing how people find ways to show their love for others and for Jesus through ministry. Today we have 4 new stories for you, each from deep within a Christian heart. And the first story in today's lineup is from a heart that almost stopped beating at the age of only 17 due to gun violence. That's right, this man was shot while just a teenager and then almost committed suicide. But these tragic incidences led that teenager into a life of service to others and allowed him to experience a real blossoming of his Christian heart. So here's his story. We call it turning disabled into is able.
I was shot when I was 17 years old and paralyzed from the neck down. In a matter of seconds, I went from a healthy young man with his life in front of him to someone whose dreams were shattered. At first, I was angry at my circumstances, at the man that shot me, and even at God. Why would a loving God want me to live this way? How could he let this happen? Slowly, that anger gave way to a deep and dark depression. I didn't want to live if I couldn't walk again. I planned my suicide. But that morning, in my darkest time, God spoke to me and changed my whole perspective. He told me that I needed to learn to live again before ever thinking about learning to walk again. I was crying out to him about my hopelessness and discouragement, that there wasn't any help or resources for someone like me. And then he planted the idea that altered my life. Why couldn't I provide that hope and encouragement to others who were paralyzed? After a lot of research, my buddy David and I began an information referral service for individuals who were paralyzed. We connected people to resources that existed to help them. As this grew, and I was able to help counsel some people, I got my certificate of ordination, and we became the Is Able Ministries. The name comes from taking off the 2 D letters in the word disabled. We have been around for 19 years now, and this February, we opened up the Is Able Center. We still provide all the resources to connect people to their needs, but now we have a building where counselors and ministers donate their time to provide counseling to individuals with disabilities, as well as their caregivers. We offer education to people working on their GED and trying to get into college. We provide computer classes, skills training, resume assistance, job hunting tips, and career planning, everything for free. We are funded entirely by donations and the 6 incredible volunteers who pour themselves into this ministry. God has a wonderful plan for each of us. Sometimes that's tough to see, but if we are still and listen, his plan is usually revealed to us.
If you've ever had a hobby, you know how time-consuming it can be. But because a hobby is fun, we sometimes don't notice the time commitment that goes into it. In this next story, the hobby became a service to the local church. And from that simple beginning, a real ministry began to grow. Now, what once was fun for one is fun for all the members of the congregation. It's a true win-win story. Here's a look at how one church began decorations for his glory.
God truly uses our gifts, no matter how insignificant a gift it may seem. For years, my sisters and I have worked together to decorate and put on events. We have done everything from wedding receptions to birthday parties for family and friends. And over the years, we've accumulated so many decorations that we have our own warehouse, my sister's garage, full of decor for every holiday and event you can imagine. Little did I know how the Lord was going to use our skill and resources to bring him glory in our community. 2 years ago, I began volunteering at my home church. I have the incredible pleasure of decorating my church for every event and every season that we have. I take such joy in this because most of the people in our church are poverty-stricken and live in Section 8 housing, which is often run down. These people are often forgotten by the rest of our community. It's been amazing to see the response people have had to what I would consider simple decorations we put throughout our church. They feel like it's been spruced up just for them. It warms my heart when I overhear some ladies say how much they admire the care we took to create a lovely display. It brings me so much joy to see the smiles on their faces from these decorations, since they probably face more hardship in one day than I do in a month. My hope as I create simple pieces of beauty is for people to see the greater beauty of God. When I put up flowers, I'm imagining how these flowers can show them the beauty of the Lord. When I hang pictures, I envision how people are going to see the love of God through these pictures. These decorations make them feel special. This is why I get so much joy in decorating. I never would have thought I could create so many smiles by doing such a simple thing. Even though I've been decorating buildings and events for years, I now decorate with much greater purpose and passion.
There's nothing quite as effective as a local church when it comes to having a place where people can hear the gospel, the good news about Jesus and his saving grace. But what about people who never come to a church or who don't belong to a local church? It's easy to just call them unchurched people, and one-on-one ministries are hard to organize and can be expensive. So our next story centers on a mobile church, one literally on wheels, and its method of getting the message of Jesus to folks who might not otherwise hear it. This trailer park church offers salvation by going wherever God opens doors.
Rome, Georgia is like most mid-sized towns in the Bible Belt, with a church on nearly every corner. But many people may never enter the doors of a church. Since they're staying away, they're not hearing the good news of salvation through Jesus Christ. Broken lives are everywhere. Drug abuse and alcoholism are rampant. If people aren't coming, why not go to them? So we started Community Church Ministry, where we take the church into neighborhoods. Several years ago, I dreamed I was in a large house and many people were there. The house had several different rooms. In the dream, I went from room to minister to the people. I had the dream at least 2 times, so I believe it was God. So in 2011, I purchased a 1969 trailer, not knowing if we could make it work. But with a lot of prayer and many volunteers, we got it working and started having meetings at a local mobile home park that included a message, dinner, and music. That year also included an Easter egg hunt, a fall festival, and a Christmas play. Soon, the ministry grew to include 10 neighborhoods. The concept is simple. We go to where people live, feed them, love them, and share God's love. Many of the people reached by this ministry may never enter the doors of a church. I have seen God work in this. A few years ago at one trailer park, we met in a small room next to the laundromat. I walked through the neighborhood looking for people to invite to dinner. I met Jason, who was walking near his house. I invited him, and he said he needed to ask his dad. After getting permission, we walked together to the meeting place. Jason told me he'd never been to church before. That night, Jason raised his hand and accepted Christ as his Savior. This year, I hope to have Thanksgiving dinners in 4 neighborhoods and Christmas programs in 10. We will go wherever God opens the door.
And finally, on this episode of The Christian Heart, meet a couple that spent the better part of their married lives leading small groups of younger couples. And over the years, this husband and wife team formed incredibly strong bonds with these younger couples. But now, late in life, with her husband deceased and her in an assisted living facility, the small group meetings are a thing of the past. But to this lady with a still strong Christian heart, that's okay. Because as she puts it, I can still pray.
For years, my husband and I taught Sunday school. We were both very outgoing and loved to pour ourselves into other people. We found a great way to do this was to lead a class of married couples. At first, it was rather intimidating, having to speak in front of others, knowing that our marriage had its share of struggles. But we loved the Lord and honored Him in our marriage, And that is what we wanted to pass on to these younger couples. For over 30 years, we led various small groups of people that were usually much younger than us. It was so much more than the time we had in class. We got to know everyone on a very deep and personal level. We invested in them. We'd check in with them all the time. We'd get together and pray when they faced a challenge. We'd share meals together and really get to know their families. These couples became our Christian children. The bonds we formed have lasted a lifetime and have been such a blessing. My husband passed away 6 years ago, after almost 57 years of marriage, and my health has deteriorated. I now live in a retirement community, in an independent living apartment, and can't make it to church because of my physical pain. But even though I'm not able to see these dear friends as often as I'd like, I can still pray for them, and I do, every day.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Christian Heart and that you'll look for more of our stories in the weeks ahead on the ministry's website at www.thechristianheart.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. If you like our encouraging podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher, and never miss an episode. The Christian Heart is a not-for-profit ministry, and as such, we are listener-supported. If you want to know more about us, or about how to support The Christian Heart, simply click on our website and you'll find contact information there. Look for another episode of The Christian Heart very soon. This has been a production of The Christian Heart. Thanks for joining us.